let's talk about New York City's ADU types. And there are several, and it's really good that there are several because New York City housing stock is much different. And it depends on all kinds of things like lot width and depth. It also depends on whether the homes are detached. They could be attached, or what we call is semi-detached. And semi-detached means that there are two homes that are attached only by one wall. And the reason why these types of typologies of homes are important is because it can really affect what you're going to be able to build. So most people know what a detached ADU is. So you have a plot of land, you have a home, and you have a really large backyard, which is kind of unusual in New York City. But that ADU is four walls. It's completely independent of the main home, and you have the ability to get to that home from the street. And some of the things that are really important that the city cares about is they want to know what this dimension is between the main home and the ADU. They also want to know what the dimensions are from these different property lines, because that all will depend on whether this works as an option. Okay, so that's detached. The other term that the city uses is called attached. And that's just simply what it is. You have, again, a home, but in this case, the ADU is attached to the main home, shares this wall. Again, it is still required to have its own separate entrance and ability to get to the street. But you can see that there will be some changes into the design to make sure that this unit is safe. But still, the city will care about all of these other dimensions, how high it is or how tall it is, to what extent, how close you are to all of these different lot lines. And then you have the other options, which are attics, basements, cellar, and my favorite, the garage. Now, there doesn't need to be too much discussion here because most people know that an attic is this area above the home. And this is going to be typically an ADU that is in a pitched roof style home, meaning when you walk up the steps from perhaps the second floor or the first floor, it's usually going to be 2 stories, you can actually get to this attic and there's enough space to create an apartment. Remember, it has to be good standing room, and it has to be accessible. Second option is to have a basement or cellar, and that's below the home as another option. So you have the attic, you have the basement, and then you may actually have the option, in some cases, to transform the garage, which may be on the side of the house or a part of the house, into an apartment as well. So these are the terms that you're going to hear people discuss. Now, I do want to talk about the difference between a basement and a cellar. And you're like, well, Bob, why do I really care? Do I really need to know about that? Well, again, these are terms that you should understand because the people that you're dealing with are going to start to throw around these items. And you don't want to have to be learning as you've already hired someone to do it. Because you want to know in advance before you hire people that this is a real option for you. And there's enough resources online here at ADU Advisory and at the city where you can get a pretty good idea of what you're doing. So let's talk about the differences between a basement and a cellar. Now, between a basement and a cellar, it's really only all about one number, 50%. All the city wants to know is if you are 50% below the grade outside of the basement or cellar or above 50%. And what does that mean? Because it can be a difficult concept. So stick with me. Let's use this green line as your soil, your grass, the grade. Here I am outside the home, okay? So this is the yard. Down here, all of this is the soil under the ground, under the grass, if you will. Now, if your basement is above 50%, your body, think of it this way, think of your body as being more than 50% above the grade outside, okay? Okay, remember this guy here I am. I need to get into the house. I have to go up these steps to come into the front door. But my brother is actually in the basement. And we call it a basement because most of his body, or at least 50%, is above the grade of the soil. And when he looks out the window, these are probably pretty big or normal size windows. And this is quite a few steps to get up into the home. That's a basement apartment. Now, you would say, well, what's a cellar then? It's a little bit different because a cellar, here again, here's the grass. Here I am, right? Except this is a basement. This cellar is deeper in the ground. Think of it that way. And my brother, he actually is more than 50% below the grade. Okay? More than 50%. This is less than 50%. Okay? More, less. So, my brother, he's in the cellar apartment. He probably only has a very small window here, and he feels like he's underground. This is what they call a cellar, and maybe there's only like 2 steps to get up into the home. This is the first floor again, right? So the difference between a basement and a cellar is how far underground you are, and likely you can tell based on the windows, and when you're in that subterranean apartment, you feel like you're really underground or not so much. And why is this important? Well, it is important for several reasons. We're not going to get into all of them, but just suffice to say that there are some code implications which are going to affect the design. And then there's also the rental ability, your marketing ability. Think about it. When you offer your ADU as an apartment dwellers are going to look for lots of things. Most likely, a detached unit is going to feel more like a home, more like on its own, and it has the feeling of being more premium. And so therefore, this is going to have more value than maybe this one, which is attached on one side, and it only has 3 sides that are open. By the same token, as you go down the ladder, an attic, basement, cellar, or garage may have less ability to charge a higher rent. So remember, it's not only about what your property can do, but it's also about how the renter prices it according to the rest of the market. So if a renter has a choice in a neighborhood to be in a cellar versus a basement, most likely they're going to pick a basement because it's going to feel more like you're above ground, you have larger windows, and it's going to feel different than being in a cellar. And by that same token, the most premium process or the most premium option might be a detached. But here's the catch. When we go through a budgeting exercise, most likely the ones that are going to be the least expensive to build are going to be cellar and basements and perhaps garages. Attics, attached, and detached all come with specific things that you're going to have to do in order to make them more compliant with codes and zoning, and also we're going to have more requirements that are going to cost more money. So at the end of the day, it's this balance. How much am I budgeting? What does my property allow for? And what vision do I have in order to do an ADU? So that's it.